What is inflation? In economics, we define inflation as the rise of general price levels which reduces the purchasing power of money. Let's say you buy one apple, and that one apple in total costs you $3. However, when you bought the same apple 2 years ago, it only cost you $1 instead of 3. Now, there are two different types of inflations we learn in economics. The first one is called demand pull inflation. This is when the aggregate demand in an economy exceeds the aggregate supply, leading to higher prices of goods and services. Now let's say you bought a bag of groceries with 6 items: bread, milk, eggs, cookies, tomatoes, and pickles. And in total, all of those groceries costed you $20. However, something happens and suddenly more people buy these goods, changing your price from $20 to a whopping $40 because there is too much of a demand and not enough supply to meet these demands. Now, the second inflation is called cost push inflation. This is when raw material price drives up production costs, leading us to what's called a supply shortage. Let's say you decide to get oil for your car, but a giant oil spill causes there to be a supply shortage of oil to run your car. This is when gas stations will up the price, and instead of gas being $1.25 a liter, it ends up being a whopping $3 a liter. The supply of the oil decreases, but the prices get jacked up to pay for the production cost. Now, to make our lives even more difficult, there's something called deflation, which is a decline in the inflation rate. However, this can be bad as people start to hoard money and can decrease consumer spending. Disinflation is bringing the inflation rate down, or in other terms, slowing down rates. And hyperinflation is when inflation increases at a very rapid pace. So, how do we measure inflation? Now, the first way we can measure inflation is with the inflation rate. Percent changes in prices from one year to the next. The second way is price indices. Index numbers that show how prices have changed relative to a specific year. Now, what if I want to measure inflation for consumers? The way I will do that is using the CPI, which stands for Consumer Price Index. We use it by taking the price of the market basket, dividing by the price of the market, and multiplying by 100. Price of the market basket being the total cost, and the price of the market being of the base year. Let's look at an example. Let's say you looked at these items you bought from the grocery store, their amounts, and the money in the base year you were looking at. Then, 2 years later, you look again, and you were now given the money of the current year of one item. To find the market basket, we have to first find the cost of the base year by multiplying the amount with the money in the base year, which will give us a whopping $30. Then, once we know the base year, we multiply the same for the current year, and with that, it'll give us $39.5. Once we know the cost of the current year and the base year, we're going to put it into our CPI calculation, and it's going to give us a total of 131.67. So, to measure inflation rate, we're going to use this calculation right here, where we take the CPI of year 2 minus by the CPI of year 1, divided by the CPI of year 1, and multiply by 100. Imagine if the CPI of year 1 was 135 and the CPI of year 2 was 150. What would the inflation rate be? By minusing 135 from 150 and dividing by 135 again, we'll get a total of 11% as the inflation rate.